The 1970s were a decade of madness, rebellion, and fearless filmmaking. Directors pushed boundaries, studios gambled fortunes, and audiences often recoiled from visions too bold for their time. Many films collapsed at the box office, dismissed as failures, but in truth, they were hidden masterpieces, works destined to be understood only decades later. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe so you never miss our deep dives into cinema's forgotten legends. Sorcerer, 1977. When William Friedkin returned after conquering the world with The Exorcist, expectations were sky-high. Instead, Sorcerer sank instantly. Released in the same summer as Star Wars, it was overshadowed, misunderstood, and unfairly labeled a disaster. But this so-called bomb was a masterpiece in disguise. The story follows four desperate outcasts hired to transport unstable explosives through unforgiving South American jungles. Rotten bridges, roaring rivers, collapsing cliffs. Every moment vibrates with life-or-death tension. The trucks themselves feel alive, trembling with terror. Behind the scenes, chaos reigned. Friedkin demanded real jungles, real storms, real danger. Actors battled disease. Trucks sank in rivers. Entire sets collapsed. The budget exploded. Executives panicked. When audiences walked in expecting a fantasy film, confused by the title, they walked out baffled. Years later, critics returned and realized the truth. Sorcerer was a nerve-shredding triumph of suspense, a masterwork now hailed alongside Hitchcock. What once died at the box office now thrives as one of the decade's great lost treasures. The Last Movie, 1971. After Easy Rider, Dennis Hopper was Hollywood's golden rebel. Studios gave him total freedom, and he used it to create The Last Movie, a surreal, fragmented dream that horrified executives and baffled audiences. Set in Peru, it follows a stuntman who watches locals imitate filmmaking with real violence, blurring illusion and reality. Hopper turned this premise into a cinematic fever dream, rejecting structure entirely. Production was chaos. There was barely a script. Improvisation ruled. Days vanished in a drunken fog. Months of editing produced hours of indecipherable footage. Universal panicked, slashing the release and burying the film. But decades later, scholars resurrected it. What once seemed madness was actually prophetic, a radical critique of colonialism, Hollywood, and the power of images. Hopper's failure became a cult revelation, a film far ahead of its time. New York, 1977. Martin Scorsese, directing Liza Minnelli and Robert De Niro, should have meant box office gold. Instead, New York collapsed, rejected for being too long, too dark, too emotionally heavy for a musical. But this wasn't just a musical. It was a bruised love letter to ambition. The story of two performers, one rising, one unraveling, was drenched in jealousy, rage, and artistic hunger. Scorsese infused the glossy MGM style with raw, emotional brutality. Audiences wanted joy. He gave them truth. Behind the scenes, De Niro's improvisation stretched scène endlessly. Minnelli struggled. Scorsese battled exhaustion. The edit ballooned to nearly 3 hours. Universal forced cuts that damaged the film's rhythm. Yet the film endured. Its theme song became a global anthem. Critics now hail it as a daring hybrid, part homage, part deconstruction, revealing the wounded soul behind show business. Barry Lyndon, 1975. Stanley Kubrick crafted Barry Lyndon like a moving oil painting. Slow, precise, hypnotic. Audiences in the 70s walked out, calling it cold and lifeless. But Kubrick wasn't making entertainment. He was crafting art. Shot with NASA-developed lenses using only natural light, the film recreated 18th century Europe with uncanny realism. The story of Redmond Barry's rise and ruin unfolded with quiet devastation. Behind the scenes, Kubrick pushed actors through hundreds of takes. Sets were controlled to perfection. Warner Brothers doubted every choice. It flopped, but time transformed it. Now it's considered one of Kubrick's greatest achievements, influencing modern cinema across decades. Man Who Would Be King, 1975. Connery. Kane. Houston. Epic adventure. It should have been a blockbuster. Instead, audiences ignored it. The tale of two British soldiers who crowned themselves kings in a remote land felt outdated in a post-Vietnam America skeptical of colonial narratives. Despite breathtaking scope, the film struggled. The production itself was a saga. Houston had tried to make the film since the 50s. The final product was grand but out of step with its time. Years later, critics hailed it as one of Houston's finest achievements, a tragic epic about friendship, corruption, and the arrogance of empire. Days of Heaven, 1978. Terrence Malick created one of the most visually stunning films ever made, and audiences stayed away. The story of love, betrayal, and survival in the Texas Panhandle was told through poetic visuals and haunting silence. Too quiet for mainstream tastes. Production was grueling. Malick filmed almost entirely at magic hour, waiting endlessly for perfect light. Editing lasted years. Executives panicked, but history reversed the verdict. The film won an Oscar and is now considered a cinematic scripture of beauty and sorrow. Friends of Eddie Coyle, 1973. This wasn't a glamorous gangster film. It was a bleak portrait of criminals trying to survive. Robert Mitchum delivered one of the greatest performances of his career, but audiences ignored it. Too slow, too real, too painful. Mitchum immersed himself in Boston's underworld, bringing authenticity that audiences at the time didn't appreciate. Now, crime filmmakers call it required viewing. Its influence echoes through modern cinema, its realism years ahead of its time. Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, 1973. Sam Peckinpah's elegy to the Western was mutilated by MGM. His long, poetic cut was sliced into a confusing mess. Critics hated it. Audiences stayed away. But the director's cut changed everything. Bob Dylan's Knockin' on Heaven's Door became immortal. The restored version revealed a mournful, beautiful tale of friendship destroyed by power. What died in 1973 is now reborn as a classic. The Hired Hand, 1971. Peter Fonda stunned Hollywood by directing a gentle, meditative Western. Nothing like the shootouts audiences expected. Quiet, atmospheric, poetic. It bombed instantly. But decades later, restorations revealed its artistry, dreamlike cinematography, lyrical pacing, and emotional resonance. Modern filmmakers cite it as a key influence. Winter Kills, 1979. A wild, dark satire of political conspiracies starring Jeff Bridges and John Huston. Too close to America's real traumas. Financed partly by drug money, plagued by lawsuits and sabotage by studios, it never had a real release. Now it's celebrated as a prophetic masterpiece of the conspiracy genre. A journalist uncovers a corporation behind political assassinations. Warren Beatty delivers one of his best performances. The infamous mind control sequence is unforgettable, and yet it flopped. Too frightening, too real for post-Watergate America. Today, it's considered one of the greatest political thrillers ever made. It's Nashville, 1975. Robert Altman's chaotic, sprawling portrait of American life overwhelmed audiences. Too many characters, too many storylines, too much truth. But modern filmmakers worship it. Its style shaped an entire generation of ensemble cinema. The King of Marvin Gardens, 1972. Nicholson in a quiet, tragic role. Audiences were confused. The bleak story of two brothers chasing doomed dreams in Atlantic City was too somber for the era. Released in winter light, the film looked cold and felt even colder. Now it stands as a haunting portrait of American despair. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, 1974. Peckinpah's most brutal film was dismissed as grotesque trash. But beneath the grime was raw, emotional honesty. A desperate man chasing a dead man's head became a metaphor for America eating itself alive. Years later, directors like Tarantino revived it as a secret classic. Mikey and Nicky, 1976. Elaine May created a devastating, intimate gangster drama fueled by improvisation and raw emotion. Paramount hated her methods, seized the film, butchered it, and dumped it. Restorations revealed its brilliance. One of the most honest depictions of friendship and betrayal ever filmed. Performance, 1970. Mick Jagger's acting debut became one of the strangest films ever funded by a major studio. Violent, erotic, surreal. Warner Brothers panicked, delayed it for years, and released it quietly. But its influence is massive, from Scorsese to Lynch. A cult legend born from Scandal. Apocalypse Now, 1979. A production cursed from the beginning. Typhoons, heart attacks, exploding budgets. Brando unprepared. Coppola nearly destroyed. The film's madness was real. When it premiered, many critics called it incoherent. It didn't recoup its massive cost, but time crowned it a masterpiece. One of the greatest war films ever created. A descent into the darkest corners of human sanity. The 1970s were a graveyard of failures. But within that graveyard lie masterpieces born too early, too bold, too strange for their time. Which forgotten gem haunts you the most? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into cinema's hidden truths.